Hi, everybody, and welcome to Best Practices for Designing and Facilitating Online Courses for Adult Learners, engaging adult learners to boost student satisfaction and retention efforts. We're going to just do a short introduction. My name is Dr. Jessica Alvarado. I'm a full-time faculty member and academic program director here at National University, and I'm joined here with my colleague.
And I am Dr. Susan Gilbert, and I am also an academic program director and full-time faculty at National University.
All right, we're going to go ahead and switch off our videos here and move forward with the slides. All right, so just a little bit about our presentation. Obviously, you knew enough to want to view our recording here. So there's our paper ID. And again, our title of our presentation. We have a paper in progress that we've been working on. So more information coming soon. And I won't read this abstract. Obviously, it was posted within the conference webpage, so that is there. And obviously, you'll see the components that we listed in the abstract come to life in our presentation that we're going to do right now. And then finally, just kind of as a foundation to learn a little bit more about National University's early childhood programs, we have 3 different degree programs within teacher education department. So we have a bachelor's in early childhood education. We have a bachelor's degree in early childhood development, which is combined with a multiple subject credential for the state of California. And then we have a master's in early childhood education. And then finally, we have a certificate program really founded on National Head Start. So we worked with them, more information on that later as well. So the certificate program is essentially 5 certificates that have 8 courses each. It's stackable, so students with little or no experience in higher education can start the certificate program. And if they do all 5 certificates, they essentially end up with their bachelor's in early childhood education. So it's a really unique and exciting program that we've created with the help of many others in our university. And just a little bit more information about National. So we're a little bit unique in that our courses are only 4 weeks in length, which may sound daunting to some, but it actually works really well. So our courses are really focused, intensive courses with the adult learner in mind. So it works really well for our students. They take 1 course at a time. Our courses are capped in terms of enrollment numbers. So they're not large classes. So they're not in courses where there's, 60, 70 students. So there is a cap for those. The courses are online with a weekly optional Zoom session for the students with the instructor. Now, some courses, there are weeks where we offer more than 1 optional Zoom session. They are recorded in case the student is unable to attend or just honestly doesn't want to attend for whatever reason and they just want to watch the recording. That is an option, but we do offer it as a way to connect with our students, to provide support, and really build that sense of community within our courses.
Okay, well, as we begin and as we think about our programs, factors that we considered when we developed our programs, both programs and courses for online delivery, were the history of early childhood education, the ECE workforce, which our students represent, and pedagogy. So I'll talk a little bit about each one of these more in depth. For context, ECE history has had made a concerted effort to align early childhood with the K-12 system. And part of that was by design to increase credibility, to perceive early childhood as kind of readiness programs for the elementary, the K-12 system. And that was done by trying to address both educational and systemic accelerators to basically close the achievement gap. The educational accelerators are typically the business and the federal government's expectations for efficiency and for outcomes. Early childhood was wanted to also focus more on being kind of the preparation for education, the readiness issues, to address readiness issues. And also there was a concern about the stratification of American society. So kind of equalizer, as an equalizer, universal pre-K is kind of an indicative of that. And the systemic accelerators were really looking at quality factors. How do we make things better? Overall, the goal became that of raising teacher requirements to improve the quality of teaching, to improve outcomes, and improve salary. And the pros of some of that is that the degrees did improve quality. I'm not sure that's statistically verifiable, but it did, the quality factors have improved. The cons, it devalued experience. There are a lot of people who had worked in the field for a very long time that were now being required to get bachelor's degrees. And the downside was it didn't necessarily improve salary. The intent was initially for that to happen, but in fact, CCS CCE, which is out of Berkeley, the Workforce Initiatives, reports that an ECE, they call the ECE a pathway to poverty. The average salary in 2022 was $13.07 an hour. So not a lot of return on investment. Our students, and we do regularly annual program reviews, and we also do 5-year reviews. So we have a pretty good handle on our students, and our undergraduate graduate demographic is basically female between the ages of 30 and 55, identifying as Hispanic. And again, according to Berkeley, these numbers are consistent across the United States. Our demographics are the same as they are in most early childhood programs. For persistence, we look at how long they stay in the program and how well they do. For the undergraduates, the strongest group of persistence at 76% are Hispanics above 40 years of age. The lowest persistent rates correlate to students entering with little or no prior IHE experience. And that's something that we wanted to pay close attention to as we develop the program and as we look at next steps. For graduates, our graduate program, the MECE, is a 10-month program, so the persistence rates were not available because they tend to look at them as an annual program and they don't fit. For graduation rates, NCES reports an average 60% graduation rate for undergraduates during the period of 2008 to 2021. Because of how long it takes to finish the program, we only have graduation rates from the 13th to the 2013 to 2017, and it was at 66%, and the graduate rate from 2009 to 2023 is at 85%. So we feel pretty good that we are slightly above the national average for undergraduates, well above for graduates, but still room for improvement. One of the things we also looked at is a comparison of wages in early childhood education to wages of more than 500 other occupations. And the ECE workforce ranks at the 3rd percentile for annual earnings, which is pretty low. This translates to a very low return on investment for ECE students who are being required to obtain a bachelor's degree, but really will not necessarily recap their costs. That won't be in their salaries. Just some brief demographics about our actual students is 30% of our undergraduates are already working in the field. So they are basically already teachers of record most of the time. 50% are working in state preschools and 80% are working with children from ages 3 to 5. What this all meant about our students is that a need to honor the work experience that they're bringing into the class. And to do that, we looked at building in andragogy, which is taking into consideration adult learning theory. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Universal design for learning, which is offering choice, offering students a different way to demonstrate what they've learned. Contextual learning theory, we've used this in a couple of different ways. Basically, contextual learning theory means that you use context or and links. So you looking at like course material and how that works in daily life or experience, or in fact, it could be the other way around. How does your daily life experience relate to the course material? Looking to create a more meaningful pathway. One of the other factors we looked at was specifically pairing ECE courses with GE coursework, focused on those our lowest persistence students that are coming in at ground zero or with very little uh, higher education work. And we looked at finding ways to use that, give them more practical experience. And we worked with our College of Letters and Sciences and their GE work to kind of pair courses that students were more successful in, ways that we could actually pair the GE work with early childhood work. And so we're very excited to be on that path. The other thing we look at is the essentials of online best practices. And another factor that we don't have as much control over, though, is tuition. I mean, given the earnings and the return on investment. So one of the things that we have done in our undergraduate program is, and in our graduate program as well, is we use a lot of OER, open ed resources, so that our students are not having to buy texts. And in a 4-week class, that can be really important, because if you wait until your class ends to try to get your textbook for the next one, it might not come till the 3rd week. We also offer at NU prior learning options. There's exams. Um, there's online training, which is Sophia Learning and Straighter Line courses they can take for credit, as well as transfer units. We have relationships with, I think, just about every community college um, to transfer credits in. And so basically all of these things come together, looking at our students' needs, looking at best practices, as well as other aspects of pedagogy. And online learning basically really is dominating the learning preferences for adults in higher education. Um, just as an aside, when I first came to National University back in 2005, most early childhood cohorts and programs did not want they wanted it all online, all on ground. And that's kind of gone almost a whole 180 degrees now, where most of our students, they work full time, they're in the field, it's late hours, they want online education. iPads has predicted a growing demand for this, and the need for quality courses work is essential. So in addition to ensuring that our online courses support learning, we're looking for them to be relevant and have accurate content. There's also a need for for our courses to be engaging and satisfy students.
Excellent. So with the designing of our online courses, there's, a number of things that Susan just talked about, but all of our online courses are really built upon the theory of andragogy, right? So we look at meaning, their experience, all of those things that come into play when you're working with adult learners. Our courses are supported by Universal Design for Learning, so we take many different opportunities that we can in our online courses to allow students to have choice, not just when they want to turn in something, but really how they demonstrate their learning, their mastery of the learning outcomes. So it can be anything from allowing a different format in terms of like a Word document to a PowerPoint to a poem, to a video that they create where they do a mock interview. So we have lots of opportunities for different ways in which students can demonstrate their learning, but the choice really is what's important for our adult learners. Oftentimes we will see their choices reflect what they are currently doing in the field. So if there is a choice where a student can kind of adapt an assignment for, the field of early childhood, they may design like a teacher training, or they may do a welcome video themselves for the staff that they work with. So lots of different things are, I can list a million different creative assignments that we get from our students, but we really do support that choice from our students. So we make sure that our courses are at the appropriate course level. So understanding who our students are as learners and as experts in the field as well. So we have some students in our courses who are brand new to the field of early childhood, and then we have others who are currently directors and they've, done everything from teaching to working in the kitchen to whatnot. And they've been around for 25 years in the field. So we take that into consideration in terms of not just the assignments they do, but how they demonstrate their learning. So all of our courses have measurable learning outcomes. All of our content that is in the course is aligned to those learning outcomes. And again, we're doing each course in a 4-week period. So they are intense, but they are really strategic in that way. We make sure that as much as possible, our assignments are real world applicable. So not just filling in a worksheet to fill in a worksheet really, but giving them scenarios, case studies, things like that, where they can put their knowledge to the test, if you will, and really demonstrate that learning. And then different opportunities for engaging with content. Again, those scenarios, those case studies. Sometimes we write the case studies and they'll do an analysis. Sometimes the students will have opportunities where they can showcase a case study themselves, or with their field work, they can go do field work observation and then do things with what they observed, right? So anything from like assessments to how you might support a certain child or group of children, etc. So the list goes on and on, but I think course development in general is one of our strong points that we have, and often get really good feedback from our students, which is nice. So there are design elements that support learning. So we do pay attention to things like having consistencies in the online classroom format. So our courses are 4 weeks long. They're built into 4 different modules. Whether you call them module or week, it doesn't really matter. They're broken up basically into 4 modules. And there are multiple ways that students can connect with both their instructor and with their peers. And that can look a little bit different, but we always kind of have some of those general things, those general consistencies in our courses. Everything from like discussion forums to optional peer review forums to the weekly optional Zooms, etc. We do make sure that we are providing opportunities for additional learning and growth. So really paying attention to what our students are submitting. If we have a student in particular who is newer to the field and they need maybe kind of some of those foundational supports, we will make sure that we provide those for the student. And if we have somebody who's been a teacher for, 10 years in the field, maybe we want to start talking to them or sharing some resources about administration and see if we can support their learning, their growth, or challenge them in different ways. We do provide many support resources that are not just academic focused. So we have like the traditional things that you'll see in higher education, right? We have like a writing center, stuff like that. But we also have some great supports at National University, like timely care, just different student resources where if they need some support, National offers a series of essentially like mental health counseling or support groups and things like that for no additional charge, just part of their tuition. So it's really great what National can offer. So lots of different things there. All this content again is not only like in their welcome packet and online, but it's in each course so students see it regularly, they're exposed to it, and then all of our instructors know about it so they can also refer students when needed. And really student support is a huge piece of our work in early childhood. So if we have a student in our class who's struggling, we do have a whole system set up where we can notify administration that there may be a need for some support or concern, etc. Obviously, keeping all FERPA in mind, right? So making sure that we're in line with what the law says, but also providing those supports to students if they choose. So that's just a really great piece that we offer. And then finally, presence and interaction, right, from our instructor. So our instructors are logging in usually daily, many times, multiple times per day. Not only will they see an instructor come in and grade things, but they are active in the discussion forums. They're posting announcements. Anything from like, here's some tips for your assignment that's due on Sunday to, hey, here's a really neat resource that you might be interested in. Emails, etc. So really personalizing the support as we see fit in the month with our students. But I think that's a really great way that we really do build that sense of community. In terms of facilitating the online courses, we are really big about building those relationships with students. And yes, in a 4-week class, you can do that. Now, sometimes you'll have one student and you may not see them for a couple of months, or maybe they just never end up in your particular course again. And then sometimes you'll see students maybe the next month or maybe a few months later. So that's always fun when you have that come into play. But we do work really hard to establish and foster that sense of community. So having that instructor presence again, sharing about your expertise, not just like supporting with literature, but also sharing with students like some of the things that you experienced or had to grow through when you were a professional in the field with young children. Those types of things are really important for students, and just being available. So not just if you have a question, email me, but hey, every Tuesday I have 2 hours of office hours that you can come in and just ask questions or share something with me, to those optional discussion forums, to the required discussion forums, to those weekly Zooms, different ways of connecting with our students. We know the culture of care is really important for our adult learners, and we really do look at them as anders, right? So they're not just students, they are students and professionals. They're students and fathers, they're students and mothers. Um, they're anders. So we really make sure that we are aware of that, reminded of that, and support them as best as we can. We like to challenge our students in their assumptions. We like to encourage the dialogue when we can have really open and professional conversations, whether it be in a discussion forum or in a Zoom setting. It really does help all of us learn from one another, to consider another perspective, to share expertise, etc. So I think we can really grow in that way. So any interactions, supports, connections that we can have with our students is really important. And then obviously, when you are teaching a 4-week class, timely, targeted feedback for students is really important. So that doesn't just mean grading, in a week. We really aim to grade as quickly as we can. Now, obviously, depending on class size and what the assignment is, sometimes they take a little bit longer than not. But I will say, as a whole, national university instructors are really dedicated to making sure that we personalize that feedback. It's not just canned things that we place in every student's. It's focused in on what students are saying, what they did really well, where we can challenge them, suggestions for growth, etc. So considerations that we all need to have when we are working with our students is remembering who our student learners are. So not just that they are a professional and a mother, but really trying to grab what they have as expertise, whether that be they have some sort of formal training or they're currently a director in the field, using that to help conversations and share with one another, sharing real life examples and stories, not just as the instructor, but encouraging that dialogue from our students, connecting with learners as individuals. So although we look at our class as a whole, we also obviously focus on our students as individuals too, right? So knowing who they are, building that relationship, challenging them where we can, supporting them in any way that they might need. And that can look really different from student to student or class to class. Anticipating struggles or areas for support with our students is key. So when we teach certain courses repetitively, we can sometimes pull out those areas where we see students might struggle or need some support, whether that be adjusting of time, or that might be that we ourselves as the instructor create, a supplemental video or share a link to a website, something like that, to help support their understanding, to ensure that they're able to do their assignment. enjoy it and also be able to successfully complete it. And then making the learning meaningful. So making sure that we have assignments and we're facilitating discussions that really do have meaning that they really can use. That's really important for us is the applicability.
Okay, well, our next steps, actually, we're pretty excited about some of the things that are coming up. Um, Jess mentioned the Head Start Pathway Program, which was initially developed for Head Start specifically, and is a series of 5 certificates with 8 courses each that start with like a CDA or start with the basically minimum requirements that most early childhood centers require for a position. So it means that our students that are coming in at sort of that ground zero point, if they do their first certificate, can actually find themselves um, in a position to provide, to apply for a job as they begin to continue through the program. And in between, through working with Coles, we added in the general education classes. And so one of the things that we're really excited about is that beginning in 2025, that pathway was opened up to any student coming in with very little IHE experience. We've been wrestling with how to deal with those issues. We know our lowest persistent rates are for those students. And so we think that this gives them, it meets their needs, it's more interesting for them to start, and that the GE work gets kind of woven in, and they're paired. So when they do things like looking at music, movement, and dance, which is an elective at some point, they're actually then taking their GE music and art classes. And we do take assessment very, very seriously at NU, and we have plans in place. We do have our annual and 5-year reviews, and we plan to continue to monitor persistence and graduation rates. But we want to pay particular attention to these students who are historically been low to see if this shift and this subtle change will make a difference. Currently, we only have 3 that are following that recommended pathway, but we hope to have more, and we hope to be able to get a better idea of what's going on there.
All righty, and with
All
that,
right. Oh,
we're going to wrap up our presentation. So if you're interested in learning more, our website is www.nu.edu. This PowerPoint presentation will be available within the Conference Hub. So there is a direct link to see all of our early childhood programs on one page. So check that out when you have a chance. And we thank you for joining.
yeah, we appreciate it.